The night it happened, I can still remember the sound of her voice, cold, sharp, and final. My daughter-in-law looked me straight in the eyes and said, "We can't take care of a useless old woman anymore." My heart froze. I stood in the same kitchen I had cooked in for years, where laughter once filled the air, and suddenly, everything felt hollow. My son, Ethan, didn't say a word. He just looked down at his shoes, as if avoiding my eyes could erase what was happening. I wanted him to defend me, to say something, anything, but silence said more than words ever could. For years, I had given them everything. My savings, my time, my strength. I had raised their children, cooked their meals, folded their laundry when they were too busy to notice I was tired. And yet, in that moment, I became nothing more than a burden. "You can stay till the weekend," she said again, as if she was doing me a favor. After that, they would figure something out. Figure something out. There was nothing left to figure out. I had nowhere to go. When the door shut behind her, I felt the chill of emptiness wrap around me. I sat alone at the edge of my bed, listening to the ticking clock, wondering how love could fade so quietly. But that wasn't the end of my story. Because the very next morning, there was a knock at my door, and that knock would change everything. "Hi everyone, my name's Evelyn, or as my grandson calls me, Grandma Evie. Before I tell you what happened next, make sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. You can even share a piece of your own story, because sometimes our stories remind others they're not alone. Now, let's go back to that morning, the day I discovered that weakness and strength aren't opposites. Sometimes they live inside the same heart. The sun hadn't fully risen when I heard it, a gentle but firm knock on the door. I hesitated, unsure if I should even answer. But when I opened it, I saw Mrs. Thompson, my neighbor from down the road. Her face was kind, her eyes full of worry. "Evelyn," she said softly, "I heard what happened. Are you okay?" Those words nearly broke me. Nobody had asked if I was okay in a long, long time. I tried to smile, but my voice cracked as I said, "I'll manage." She stepped inside, holding a small basket of muffins. "You don't have to face this alone," she said. "You're stronger than they think." I didn't realize it then, but those words would become my lifeline. Stronger than they think. After she left, I sat by the window for hours, watching the light change across the hills. I thought about my life, about the nights I stayed up rocking crying babies, the years I worked double shifts just to keep the lights on, the times I put everyone else before myself. I wasn't weak. I was tired. There's a difference. That evening, when my son came home, I asked him gently, "Ethan, is this really what you want? For me to leave?" He looked uneasy, shifting from one foot to the other. "Mom, things are tight right now." "Sarah thinks," I stopped him. "Don't tell me what Sarah thinks," I said quietly. "Tell me what you feel." He hesitated, his eyes darting away. "It's just for a while," he muttered. But I could hear the lie in his voice. It wasn't for a while. They wanted me gone. That night, I packed a small bag, just a few clothes, my rosary, and a photo of my late husband from our wedding day. I didn't know where I'd go or what would happen, but I made myself a promise: no one would ever make me feel useless again. As I sat by the window, the moonlight touching the edge of my face, I whispered to myself, "They think I'm weak. But they don't know the storms I've survived." My whole life had been a fight, against poverty, against loss, against loneliness. And now, this was just another test. They thought I'd break quietly and fade away. But they were wrong. I was just beginning to remember who I really was. And the next morning, when I stepped outside for the last time, I had no idea that what awaited me would not only test my strength but reveal it in ways that would surprise everyone, even me. The morning I left my son's house, the air felt heavier than usual. Every sound, the crunch of gravel under my shoes, the creak of the old wooden gate, carried a kind of finality. I didn't say goodbye. What words could I even use? Goodbye felt too light for what I was losing. I wasn't just leaving a house. I was leaving behind years of love, memories, and the belief that family meant forever. I walked for what felt like hours, my small suitcase rolling unevenly over the cracks in the sidewalk. The sun climbed higher, but I didn't feel its warmth. Every step felt like a question: where do I go now? Who do I become when the world no longer needs me? For the first time in my life, I was truly alone. I ended up sitting at a bus stop on the edge of town. Cars passed by, people laughed, and life just went on as if my pain didn't exist. A young man sitting nearby offered me a bottle of water. "You okay, ma'am?" he asked kindly. I smiled faintly and said, "I will be." I wasn't sure if I believed it yet, but it felt good to say it out loud. When the bus finally came, I climbed aboard and stared out the window as the town I once called home disappeared behind me. I didn't know where the bus was going, I just needed it to take me somewhere else. Somewhere I could start over. After a few hours, I got off in a small rural town I had never seen before. It was quiet, almost too quiet, with an old diner on the corner and a few houses scattered around. My body ached, but I kept walking until I found a bench near a park. I sat there watching a group of kids playing, their laughter echoing through the air. And for a moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. A few minutes later, an older woman in a faded blue dress walked by. She looked at me, paused, and said, "You're not from around here, are you?" I shook my head. "No, ma'am. Just passing through." She smiled gently. "No one really just passes through here," she said. "There's a reason people find this town, even if they don't know it yet." Her name was Martha. She ran a small bakery just a few streets over. When she learned I had nowhere to go, she offered me a room above the bakery. I hesitated at first, embarrassed, but her eyes were kind and steady. "Everyone needs a place to rest," she said. And so, I accepted. That night, lying in a small but cozy room that smelled of cinnamon and fresh bread, I cried. Not out of sadness this time, but relief. Maybe life wasn't ending after all. Maybe it was quietly beginning again. Over the next few weeks, I started helping out in Martha's bakery. Kneading dough, wiping tables, greeting customers, things that once seemed ordinary began to heal something inside me. People started recognizing me. "Morning, Miss Evelyn," they'd say with a smile. It wasn't much, but it was something. One morning, a teenage girl came in looking upset. She had been arguing with her mother, and tears streaked her cheeks. I handed her a warm muffin and said softly, "You don't always have to be strong, sweetheart. But never forget that you are." She smiled through her tears and whispered, "Thank you." It was in that moment I realized something: strength isn't always loud. It's quiet. It's choosing to keep going even when no one sees you trying. As days turned into months, I saved a bit of money and started renting a small house nearby. It wasn't fancy, just 2 rooms and a garden that needed love, but it was mine. I planted roses in the front yard, because my husband, God rest his soul, always said they reminded him of hope. Sometimes, when I sat on that porch watching the sunset, I thought about my son. I wondered if he ever thought about me, if he missed the smell of my cooking, or the way I used to hum while folding laundry. I missed him deeply, but I also knew this peace I'd found, this hard-earned peace, was something I could never give up again. One evening, Martha stopped by and handed me an envelope. "Someone came into the bakery looking for you," she said. My heart skipped. I opened it slowly. Inside was a letter from Ethan. He wrote that things at home had fallen apart after I left. Sarah had taken the kids and moved away. He had lost his job. "I didn't realize what I had until you were gone," he wrote. "I'm sorry, Mom. I understand now. You were never weak. You were the strongest person in our family." Tears filled my eyes, but I wasn't angry. I didn't feel the need for revenge or bitterness. Instead, I whispered a prayer of gratitude, not for his apology, but for the strength it took to get here. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my old Bible. Then I looked up at the sky and said softly, "They thought I was weak, but I was just learning how to be strong." But what I didn't know was that life still had one more surprise waiting for me, a twist that would test everything I had learned about love, forgiveness, and strength itself. It was a rainy afternoon when I heard the knock. Soft, hesitant, almost like whoever was on the other side wasn't sure if they belonged there. I wasn't expecting anyone. Martha had gone to visit her sister in another town, and I'd planned to spend the day baking apple pie, my husband's favorite recipe. I wiped my hands on my apron and opened the door. And there he was. Ethan. My son. The boy I had once carried in my arms, now standing in the doorway like a stranger lost in his own story. His clothes were soaked, his eyes swollen from what looked like sleepless nights, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. "Mom," he finally said, his voice cracking. Just one word, but it carried years of regret. I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at him. My heart wanted to forgive him instantly, but my mind remembered every tear, every sleepless night, every moment I had questioned my worth. "Ethan," I whispered, "why are you here?" He looked down, avoiding my eyes. "Because I have nowhere else to go." There was something in his tone that hit me, not pity, not manipulation, but truth. He wasn't here to control or demand. He was here because life had humbled him. I stepped aside and said quietly, "Come in." He entered slowly, as if walking into a sacred space. His eyes scanned the small living room, the crocheted blanket on the couch, the framed photo of my husband on the wall, the soft glow of the lamp. It wasn't much, but it was a home built from peace, not pride. We sat at the table in silence. The sound of rain filled the room. I poured him a cup of coffee and said, "You look tired." He nodded, tears welling up. "Mom, I messed up. After you left, everything went wrong. Sarah left. The kids don't talk to me. I lost my job. I lost everything." I watched him closely. The man who once believed he didn't need his mother now sat before me, broken, fragile, and human. He looked up, eyes full of guilt. "You were right. You were never weak. I was. I let someone else tell me how to love my own mother." His voice broke completely. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." I reached across the table and took his trembling hand. "Ethan," I said softly, "forgiveness isn't about who deserves it. It's about who needs peace to move on. And I need peace. He started crying, the kind of deep, aching cry that comes from the soul. And in that moment, all the anger I had carried melted away. Because no matter how old your child gets, a mother's heart never stops loving. I made us both dinner, simple chicken soup and bread. He ate quietly, like he hadn't had a home-cooked meal in years. When he finished, he said, "Mom, can I stay here for a while? Just until I get back on my feet." I smiled faintly. "You don't have to ask. You're home." That night, I stood by the window watching the rain ease into a gentle drizzle. The house felt full again, not of noise or chaos, but of warmth. Ethan had gone to sleep in the small spare room, and I whispered a quiet prayer. "Thank you, God. Not for bringing him back, but for giving me the strength to wait without hate." Days turned into weeks. Ethan started helping at Martha's bakery with me. He repaired shelves, carried boxes, and even began smiling again. People in town welcomed him kindly, never judging him for what they didn't know. Slowly, I watched him become the man I had always believed he could be. One evening, as we closed the bakery, Martha pulled me aside and said, "You saved him, Evelyn." I shook my head with a small smile. "No," I said. "He saved himself. I just left the light on long enough for him to find his way back." Years passed. My little house became a place of laughter again. My grandkids visited on weekends. Ethan remarried eventually, to a kind woman who treated me like her own mother. We rebuilt what was broken, not perfectly, but honestly. Now, as I sit here in this old chair, telling you this story, I can still hear those words that once haunted me, "Useless old woman." Funny thing is, those words no longer hurt. They remind me of how far I've come. I look at my granddaughter sitting beside me, eyes wide and heart open, and I smile. "Sweetheart," I tell her, "never let anyone convince you that kindness is weakness. The strongest thing a person can ever do is forgive." She leans her head on my shoulder, and I feel the warmth of her little hand in mine. Outside, the evening sun spills golden light across the yard. It's peaceful, the kind of peace that comes only after walking through storms. Because they thought I was weak. But I was never weak. I was just learning how strong love, real love, can truly be.